We're about to hear from 5 different speakers, and they're going to use a presentation methodology called Pecha Kucha. And Pecha Kucha means loosely chit-chat in Japanese. And basically, each of these presenters is going to provide about 10 slides, 20 seconds each on each slide. So it's a bit like speed dating, but it only goes one way. And what the theme of today's Pecha Kucha is about is what we have learned and what are the challenges ahead. And the speakers do come from a range. We've got speakers, we've got a health and safety worker and a health and safety rep, a senior leader from vertical construction, professional services, specialist tradesperson, and a health and safety practitioner. So quite a range of people going to do their presentations. So welcome and thank you.
Right, I'm Ian Campbell from McConnell Dale, previously of Skirt. What did we learn from the horizontal infrastructure rebuild? First of all, good safety requires the work to be well planned, with everybody knowing the plan. Fencing the site and keeping it well organised and tidy also makes the work both easier and safer. It's imperative you have the right gear for the job. A bit of extra time and money spent gearing up properly can and will save lives. Number 8 wire is for fences, not construction. There can also be no cutting corners when our people are working at height. Safe working platforms can take a bit of building, but once they're up, they enable us to run the job smoothly, quickly, with no hold-ups or surprises. The same thing goes for having the right protection when we're working at depth. It's really important to be on the front foot when dealing with the public and other stakeholders. A bit of effort explaining what we're doing and getting our traffic management and site fencing right saves a lot of hassle and prevents accidents happening around our sites. It can also get us hot butter scones and other treats when we get it right. There are some construction jobs that are best done at night, but these must be planned so people are not working too many hours and getting fatigued. Tired people make mistakes, and in our business, mistakes can kill people. The earthquakes were a savage reminder that we can't totally control our environment and what it'll throw at us. We have to expect the unexpected and be ready to deal with it at all times. How we better prepare ourselves for these kind of events is one of our challenges going forward. There are a lot of lessons we can learn from the past 7 years that we need to apply to the way we do things in future. The earthquake rebuild was mostly about repairing existing infrastructure. This generally makes for more complicated and difficult projects with additional risks, particularly when the facilities need to be kept operational while we fix them. This type of project is going to become more common in business as usual. We need to develop our capability for doing this type of particularly difficult work safely. Public tolerance for the disruption of our construction is decreasing rapidly. It will become ever more important to keep traffic flowing, businesses operating, and the impacts on adjacent properties and the local environment to an absolute minimum. Finding safe ways of meeting these expectations will provide plenty of challenges for us all in future. Now, just building on what Joe was just talking about, this is a graph I pinched from WorkSafe. As you can see, the orange is the total recordable incidents have been trending down nicely. This is a national graph. The blue is the fatalities, and you can see the 25%, but really we've got a lot more work to do there. This has to be our biggest and most important challenge. It's all about us, first and foremost, identifying critical risks, the ones that can kill people, and eliminating them. Thank you.
Evening everyone, I'm Maddy from Tinder Structural Engineers, and I'm here to share with you about what I've learnt about the importance of effective communication and worker participation in health and safety. I'm very lucky to be part of a team that embraces and excels at this naturally, but this may not be the case across the board. Information is effectively communicated internally within your company and externally between other PCBUs, regulators and the like. And a breakdown of these communication chains is where we start to see problems arise and we see unsafe practices or incidents occurring. If internal communication breaks down, you may have a worker at risk if they don't know how to operate a piece of machinery. If your external communication breaks down, you may have another PCBU's worker at risk if they don't know the hazards on your site, such as moving vehicles. So to sum this up in one picture, poor communication can lead to serious consequences. While we're building Christchurch, we've had a vast range of support organisations and resources at our fingertips, which I'd liken to a beehive, with all of us working together, learning, sharing and constantly communicating with one another. And I will stick my hand up here and say that if I do hear a good idea, I will attempt to steal it off you and use it. Another lesson I've learnt is how crucial participation is. I think a gap was recognised in terms of worker participation, so now not only is it a requirement of the Act, but it's most effective when all perspectives are consulted. And some of the best participation comes from those that are on the ground and engaged, where communication also plays a big part. So to give an example from Tinder, we have health and safety as an agenda item at every meeting. We recently added 2 prompts to this. I've seen a rise in participation due to the excitement of sharing a story or having a good chat. And these were incredibly simple. They were, what are the best thing you've seen this week and what is the worst? So authentic work stories like this will resonate and connect with your team. When communicated in this format, this has led to excellent discussions on our half on how we could improve in the future. So it doesn't have to be boring. Our staff are now more engaged on site, even reporting themselves on occasion. So the biggest challenge I envision ahead of us is to continue to expand and improve on communication and participation. I'm sure everyone in this room is already very health and safety conscious and all over this, but by broadcasting this to the rest of Canterbury, we achieve maximum saturation and continuous improvement. So to return to the beehive analogy, I encourage you to use it, to reach out, to continue supporting one another, keep your communication channels open and encourage participation at all levels. Together, our work is greater than the sum of its parts. So be active, have fun and make a difference. That's why we're all here. Now, I'm not going to get told off a little bit for this, for going slightly over time, but I felt it personally important to thank a few people that had made an impact on my health and safety journey. So we have Craig Sengelo down here from WorkSafe for your innovation and enthusiasm. We've got Alan Boswell from the CECC, which is the best external health and safety consultant you could ask for. And we have the famous Libi from the Safety Charter. Libi, you're an absolute inspiration. Your tireless work has not gone unnoticed, and without you, we might not all be here together in this room today. So last but not least, to everyone in this room and everyone outside it that's involved, thank you and please keep going. You're doing amazing work and you are the ones out there making a difference. So I would like you to all give yourselves a well-deserved round of applause.
Evening, I'm Richard Holyoake. I'm a senior principal at Beaker and a consulting engineer. I'm also a son, a partner, a father, a brother and an uncle. The rebuild has been a busy time. The damage caused by the earthquakes has resulted in a huge increase in repair and construction activity. The earthquakes killed people, injured people, displaced people, disrupted people, bringing emotions to the fore for all sorts of reasons. Coupled together, these factors have resulted in not just physical safety risk, but in mental well-being risk. I've learnt that health and safety is fundamentally about one thing. It's about care. If you care for yourself, for your family, for your colleagues and other people, then you will look after them. You will take the time to ask questions, look after yourself and others, and do the right thing. I've learnt that care is a culture, and cultures can be changed, not necessarily at prehistoric pace. It can happen quite quickly. As a consulting engineer and as a board member in a number of other organisations, I've seen change in attitude, in questioning, and a willingness to discuss health and safety in the space of very few years. I've seen a flurry of training and educational sessions and courses around health and safety and duties prompted by the implementation of the Health and Safety at Work Act. I've learnt that people want to learn, want to understand because they care. I share relevant safety alerts and lessons across all of the organisations I'm involved with, and there is a thirst. I've learnt that there are pockets of resistance. For example, clients who can't understand why a scaffold is required instead of a ladder. For example, tradesmen using grinders without eye or ear protection. For example, clients not wanting to pay for safety and design. So I guess I've learned that we're consistently inconsistent, hence the role of the Canterbury Safety Charter. I've learnt that discussion at design stage about safety of construction and operation are hugely useful, not just for the designer, not just for the constructor, but also for the client. They really clarify what the project is all about. So the biggest challenges: continuing the culture change, working with the older influencing generations, but also with the youngest, who have quite a different outlook. It's all about care. If we care, we will take the time to stop and think, to observe, to assess, to adapt, and to act safely. But to change the culture and get the message across, we need to keep it simple and relevant. It's all about care.
I'm Kristina Wischnowsky from Higher Access. Alrighty, so the first lesson I learned was it's irrelevant to have a conversation about the cost of safety versus the benefits. So the first organisation I got involved with in a safety perspective in construction, I spent a lot of time arguing that it wasn't a cost, it was a benefit, and keeping people alive was priceless or invaluable. So that was the first lesson. It's a benefit and we don't argue about the cost. The second lesson I learned was when the company I was working with got called to a Come to Jesus meeting, basically, where the client said, we're not going to work with you anymore because you're not safe enough. And through the client's kind of direction, the business I was working with pulled up their socks and decided that safety was important and it was relevant and it was something that we wanted to become part of our culture. So I learnt that the client leading safety and insisting on safety will feed through the construction chain. The third thing I learnt was that sometimes an accident can be a wonderful way of really changing the culture and helping people understand why it is that safety is so important. So unfortunately, we had someone cut their fingers off on site, but through that accident, the ripple effect through the rest of the team and the guys actually understanding what it meant when someone got hurt and when someone had to go through the rehabilitation process made safety meaningful for the individual, each individual on site. I learnt that culture is way more important than strategy. So we can have a great safety plan, we can have a great safety goal, but ultimately we need the leadership within the organisation to really drive culture within the organisation and make sure that the way we do our business is integrated into working safely. So it's not a separate thing, it's just how we operate and how we do things in this business is we do it safely, and that's the culture. And then the last thing I learned was that we can tell people what we want them to do, we can tell them how we want to do it, we can tell them that we want to do it safely, but the most important message, and the message that's really going to get through to their hearts and minds, is why. Why is it important that safety is part of our culture? It's an integral way of operating. Why is it important? And making it meaningful to the person so that they can carry that with them in their own heart and their own mind while they're on site, and they can look out and they can care for their mates. So what are the challenges moving ahead? Well, I think that one challenge is that we need to continue on helping everybody in the industry, everybody in New Zealand understand that we are all responsible for creating a culture of safety, a culture of caring, a culture of making sure that everyone goes home and that we've all done our best at the end of the day to have positively contributed to that by speaking out when we need to, or pausing and taking 5 minutes to think about something before we do it. We're all responsible for making sure we all go home safely. I think the next big challenge is about continuing to engage employees, continuing to engage everyone in the safety culture and the safety message, rather than having the message come down, thou shalt be safe. It's what is it in it for me? Why do I need to be safe? and help making it really carry home in their hearts. So the next challenge is that by 2020, there's going to be 50 billion devices connected to the internet, right? That's a lot of technology change, and we're facing the next big disruption in work, which is the Internet of Things. So for construction, it's about thinking about how can we take advantage of the technological advances that are coming and use them to make our sites more efficient and, of course, more safe. And then we talk about it's all about culture and engaging the hearts and the minds of the people and giving them a real reason to go home safely and to work safely and to care for each other. But then the next challenge is we're facing automation on a scale that we can't even imagine. There's already a digital citizen in Saudi Arabia, so a robot who's a citizen of a country. So moving forward in construction, how are we going to continue managing a safety culture and safety behaviours with automation kind of coming at us? But lastly, I think the ongoing challenge is the challenge to continuously improve. To, like Jo said prior in her speech, it's about how do we not rest on our laurels? How do we continue to raise the bar? How do we continue turning up every day like a fine-tuned athlete, caring enough about our performance so that when we go home and we're proud of them, the efforts that we did, and we all go home safe, healthy and well. Thank you.
Hello, Haddix to follow. So, the memorial stone for the Pike River 29. We learned that individual people being killed in workplace accidents at the rate of 100 per year, which is what we were doing, is a statistic. We learned that 29 men dying in a single mine explosion cannot be listed as a statistic. Pike River forced legislative change in health and safety law in New Zealand. We've learned that health and safety requires cultural change. That is a challenge for all of us that we're taking on. The February earthquake occurred a short time after Pike River, and that intensified our response and our willingness to change. Would we have changed what we do in health and safety without the earthquakes? Would the legislative change brought about by Pike River have been enough to drive cultural change for us? We've learned that forces outside of our control, affecting all of us, create a powerful impetus to change. We were challenged to quickly build genuine relationships of trust. The new regulator, WorkSafe, supported industry efforts. PMOs began to collectively set and drive standards through their supply chain. Government, industry and unions formed the Canterbury Rebuild Safety Charter. Industry peers sought each other out and began to work together. And we've learned that when leaders work together, we can create fundamental change across the industry. We learned that health and safety reps were desperate to get together and share their stories. They said, it's hard to get together. We don't always have the autonomy to arrange our day, and our role is voluntary. They said, we need support on how to represent our peers and how to have equal conversations with people in authority. We were challenged to create space for women across the industry. We are learning that diversity improves capability across the industry. We know that changing the industry to support women improves the industry for men. We learned women identify their strengths in the industry as the same things that hold them back. And finally, what are our lessons learned? They weren't the first to try. Their lives depended on them looking after each other. They were leaders and they were part of a much bigger team. They left a legacy that inspires us. So what are our challenges? Meaningful engagement, leaving our egos and our baggage at the door, growing the health and safety message, maintain our aim and our focus in the long term. Health issues from the earthquakes and the rebuild, asbestos, dust, and the high levels of need in mental health. Diversity in construction, making the industry one that people seek out as a career choice. Leaving a legacy, how do we share the lessons that we have learned? We've learned that genuine change to health and safety culture means rebuilding the hearts and minds. How we do that is our challenge. He tangata, he tangata, he tangata.